Okay, so I'm going to continue through the topographic maps guided practice from Thursday, January 21st, but I'm going to start at the second map. So when we look at the second map, whether it's on a practice activity or a test, whenever you have a picture or a diagram like this, your first thing is to analyze it. You want to look at this picture, brainstorm on what you're seeing, interpret it, break it down as best you can. For a topographic map, I recommend that you find out how much each one of these lines is increasing by, and look at different land features that you notice. Like we have a river, this is a bridge, these black bracket looking bars, and then you have a train track. We have campgrounds. We have 1, 2, 3 peaks. And then right here with these little hatch marks, tick marks, we have a depression. Okay, and I see several points labeled. And so I'm sure we're going to have to analyze those throughout our questions. And then, of course, that makes it the easiest. Here is our compass, so that we can reference it for direction. The question's asking you what the contour interval is on this map. Now, we discussed this map a little bit in our warm-up, and so I'm going to go through how to calculate your contour interval one more time. If you look to the northeast corner, or your right-hand corner, it says the ocean. Okay, the ocean is telling me that the very first bolded line, the very first index contour, is going to be 0. 0 means this is sea level. Okay, so we're going to start at 0, and our very next index contour, the very next line for reference, is 500 meters. Okay, so between 0 and 500, let's count how many lines we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 lines between 0 and 500. Now you have to determine how much each line is increasing by. You calculate how much each line is increasing by. So one way to do that is to subtract your index lines. 500 minus 0 is 500. And then you're going to divide by 5 lines. You will always divide by 5 lines. So 500 minus 0 equals 500, divided by 5 means each line's increasing by 100 meters. And we can check that by knowing that this is 0, so this is 100. This means that's 200, 300, 400, 500. So we just proved that each line is increasing by 100 meters, and that is what our contour interval is. Our next question is asking us what the lowest elevation on the map is. So I want you to observe this map and think about what I mentioned in the introduction on what the lowest elevation would be. All right, good job. Correct. It is 0 meters sea level. 0 is obviously the lowest number, so that makes it the easiest. The lowest elevation that you can possibly have when there's an ocean is going to be sea level. Okay, so this very first line has an elevation of 0 because it is level with the ocean, it's level with the sea. The next one says, what is the elevation at the closest contour line to the bridge that crosses Blue River? So we're going to go find this symbol, which it's right here, and we're going to identify what elevation the closest contour line is. Okay, so when I look at this bridge, is it the bolded line or is it this line? Which one do you think is the closest contour line to our bridge here? It is the second line right here. Okay, it is like the bridge is almost touching it, honestly. So we have this second line and it is very close. Now we just have to determine what the elevation is. So our index says 500. Our interval is 100. So that means that it is increasing in elevation by 100 meters from this index contour to the very next line. So this entire line has an elevation of 600 meters. Okay, and all I did was add 100 to my contour interval because elevation is increasing this way. So you have 600 meters. Before I move away from the river, and we'll come back to this, we'll probably have a question on this in a second, but you see the river, we talked about the U shape and the V shape that indicates the direction the water is flowing. So from our notes, we know it always flows from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. So we can use that to determine what direction the river is flowing. But you can also look at this U shape right here. Okay, and along this, where this river crosses these contour lines, they all make a very consistent U shape. That tells me, because the U shape is opening toward the ocean, that the Blue River is flowing toward the ocean. And then if we look at our elevation, it's going from 600 to 500 to 400 to 300, 200, 100. So it is decreasing in elevation. So our Blue River is flowing northeast toward our ocean. And we'll come back to a question like this. Just so happens that it is the very next question. What direction does the Blue River flow? So again, you can use the elevation to know that it's flowing toward the ocean from a higher elevation to a lower, because this is an elevation of 600 meters, and the next one is 500, and then 400, 300, 200, 100, and then we have sea level. So it's flowing from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. Our second indication is that the U shape that you see very consistently where the river crosses your contour lines is opening toward the ocean. It's open, and the direction that it opens tells you that that's the direction that the water's flowing. So we know that it's flowing toward our right-hand corner. And if we look at our compass, it's flowing north. North is up here, and then east is here. Okay, so we have north here and east here. And our Blue River is flowing this way. So that is northeast. That is in between north and that is in between east. Naturally, we want to say that it's flowing south because we associate south with going down. But that is not the case. Down is going from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. It does not mean that by going down, you are going south. Okay? When we look at maps, south is at the bottom of the map, but this river is not flowing to the bottom of the map. It is not flowing south. It is flowing down northeast. Okay? Question. Number 13 is asking us which mountain is higher, Hill B or Hill D, and then we're going to calculate how much higher. So first, let's look at Hill B, which is right here, and Hill D, which is right here. Okay, so let's calculate the elevation at B. This index tells me that this line is 1,000, so B has an elevation of greater than 1,100. We're going to estimate. Okay, and then D, our contour index says 1,500, so that means D has an elevation of 16 because each line is increasing by 100. So which mountain is higher? We said D. Very good. Our next step is to calculate how much higher. So we have 1,600 and we have 1,100. We need to subtract them. Good. The difference is 500 meters. Okay? You go 1,100, 1,100 plus 500 meters will give us 1,600. One of your classmates stated that another indicator that D is taller than B was by he counted the lines, the contour lines for each hill. And that is a really great strategy, so let me show you that. D, without doing any math, you have 1, 2, 3 intervals. Well, you have 3 intervals for B too. And D is definitely steeper because those 2 lines up here are taller, but I think it is a better indicator for this particular question to look at the elevations and calculate the difference. On other questions, counting these intervals like we did yesterday, that is a really good strategy. For example, if we look at Pine Peak, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this peak is significantly steeper and taller than D and B. So I still think that's a great strategy. It just didn't work for this particular question.